There are moments in life when the truth stands right before us, clear, undeniable, and yet we turn away. Not because we're blind, not because we're weak, but because sometimes reality asks more of us than we are ready to give. We've all been there. When the facts challenge our beliefs, when the mirror reflects not who we wish to be, but who we really are. In those moments, acceptance feels like defeat, but in truth, it's the first step toward transformation. Too often, we confuse comfort with courage. We hide behind easy lies and familiar excuses, but the real measure of our strength is our ability to confront the hard truths about ourselves, our communities, and our world. Growth begins where denial ends. There comes a point in every person's life when the truth demands to be seen. It doesn't knock politely, it doesn't whisper softly. It stands before us, waiting for acknowledgement. And in that moment, our instinct is often to look away. We convince ourselves that we're not ready, that it's not the right time, that maybe if we ignore it long enough, it will somehow fade. But the truth doesn't fade, it waits. And every time we choose denial, we trade progress for comfort and growth for illusion. It takes an extraordinary kind of strength to face what's real, especially when reality challenges the very things we've built our lives around. To admit that something is broken when you've spent years convincing yourself it's whole, to accept that you were wrong when your pride tells you to stand firm, to acknowledge that what you believed was certain is no longer true. This is not weakness. This is courage in its purest form. Real strength is quiet. It doesn't shout or boast. It doesn't need validation. It's found in the person who looks in the mirror and admits, I could have done better. It's found in the leader who says, I made a mistake. It's found in the individual who sees their own fears and insecurities and failures and decides to confront them rather than run from them. That kind of honesty is not easy. It's the hardest thing a human being can do. We live in a world that often celebrates image over integrity, appearance over authenticity. We are told to keep smiling even when we're breaking, to act confident even when we're lost, to stay silent even when the truth is screaming inside us. But real strength is not pretending. Real strength is standing in the storm and saying, I will not hide. It's acknowledging the pain, the mistakes, the regrets, and using them as the foundation for something better. Facing the truth requires humility. It requires us to accept that we don't have all the answers, that sometimes we've been the problem, that growth often begins with discomfort. But there's a kind of liberation that comes with that honesty, because when we stop pretending, we stop carrying the weight of the lie. We open ourselves to learning, to healing, to becoming more than what we were yesterday. It's easy to fight an enemy you can see. It's much harder to face the one that lives within you, the doubts, the fears, the denial. Yet every great transformation in history, every revolution of the heart or the mind, began when someone chose to face an uncomfortable truth. They decided that pretending was no longer an option, that growth was worth the pain of honesty. And so, strength is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to move forward despite it. It is the quiet resolve that says, this is the truth. I see it, I accept it, and now I will do something about it. Because in that acceptance, we find the very thing we've been searching for all along, the courage to become who we are meant to be. There is a quiet but dangerous comfort in pretending. It gives us the illusion of safety, the illusion of control, the illusion that everything is fine when deep down we know it isn't. We tell ourselves little stories. It's not that bad. Things will fix themselves. I'll deal with it later. But pretending is like painting over cracks in the wall. For a moment, it looks perfect, but underneath, the foundation is still breaking. And no matter how skillfully we disguise it, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Real change never begins in illusion. It begins in the honest, sometimes painful recognition of what truly is. When we stop pretending, when we stop hiding behind masks and excuses, we create space for something authentic to grow. Because truth, though uncomfortable, is fertile ground. Denial, no matter how comforting, is barren soil. Nothing good can take root there. So many of us spend years trapped in the performance of stability, staying in jobs that suffocate us, relationships that wound us, patterns that diminish us, because facing the reality of our situation feels unbearable. It feels safer to keep pretending that everything is okay. But deep inside, there's always that quiet voice, the one that whispers in the silence of the night, "This isn't who you are." You can silence it for a while, drown it out with distractions, but it never leaves. It waits patiently for the day you're brave enough to listen. And when that day comes, when you finally decide to stop pretending, you begin to see clearly for the first time. You realize how much energy was wasted maintaining the illusion, how much peace was sacrificed in defensive denial. The truth doesn't destroy you, it frees you. It strips away what's false and leaves behind something stronger, something real. To stop pretending is to accept responsibility. It's to admit that no one else is coming to fix what's broken, that no amount of blame or avoidance can heal what we refuse to acknowledge. The moment we face reality, the moment we speak the truth, even if our voice trembles, we take back our power. Because you cannot change what you won't confront. In every great movement, in every great personal transformation, there comes a moment of awakening, a moment when pretending simply becomes unbearable, the illusion collapses under its own weight, and you're left standing in the rawness of truth. It's frightening, yes, but it's also beautiful, because that is where rebirth begins. When we stop pretending, we stop lying to ourselves about what happiness means, what success looks like, what love should feel like. We stop performing for the world and start living for what is real, and though the process is often messy, though it strips us of certainty, it also gives us something far more valuable: clarity. Clarity to see what matters, clarity to choose differently, clarity to build a life rooted not in appearances, but in truth. Pretending may offer temporary comfort, but truth offers lasting freedom. And that freedom, though it may demand everything from us, gives us back our authenticity, our peace, and our power. Because when we stop pretending, we stop merely existing and begin finally to live. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for. Sometimes it whispers through gentle reminders, and other times it roars through storms that shake everything we thought we knew. Reality, in its raw and unfiltered form, is the greatest teacher we will ever encounter, yet it's the one we most often resist. We fight it, question it, deny it, hoping that by refusing to look, we can somehow change what is. But reality does not bend to our comfort. It waits patiently until we are ready to learn. Every disappointment, every failure, every heartbreak is life's way of showing us something we could not have seen in comfort. Pain is not just suffering, it is revelation. It strips away illusion and forces us to confront the essence of who we are. We often think we learn from success, but it is struggle that builds our character. It is the sleepless nights, the broken plans, the unanswered prayers that shape our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. When reality confronts us with loss, with rejection, with change, our instinct is to retreat. We want to hide behind the walls of what was familiar, to hold on to what used to be. But life does not move backward, it calls us forward, often through the very things we wish had never happened. The truth is, reality doesn't punish us, it prepares us. It shapes us for the next chapter long before we can see it. We live in a culture that tells us to chase comfort, to avoid pain, to run from anything that hurts. But growth is not born in ease. Growth lives in discomfort, in the quiet moments when we question everything, in the ache that refuses to go away. Those are the moments when we are being refined, when life is trying to teach us something greater than what we can see. And if we can stop fighting reality, if we can listen instead of resist, we begin to understand its wisdom. There's a reason every great story, every triumph, every transformation begins with struggle, because struggle wakes us up. It pulls us out of the illusions we've built and reminds us what truly matters. It's through the cracks that the light enters. It's through the collapse of certainty that faith is born. Reality is not cruel, it is honest. It shows us what we need to see, not what we want to see. When we stop running from it, when we stop asking, why me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? That's when our suffering begins to change shape. It becomes purpose. It becomes direction. Every setback becomes a lesson in patience. Every rejection becomes a lesson in resilience. Every loss becomes a lesson in love. Reality teaches with precision. It doesn't care for our ego or excuses. It cares for our evolution. And the more we resist it, the more painful the lesson becomes. But when we surrender, not in defeat, but in acceptance, something miraculous happens. We begin to see that the things we feared most were never here to break us, but to build us. The storms that once made us doubt now become the winds that push us toward who we were always meant to be. The failures that once brought shame now carry wisdom. And the heartbreaks that once left us shattered become the openings through which compassion and strength flow. Reality is the teacher that never leaves us. It follows us through every chapter, every mistake, every moment of growth. It teaches us humility when we are proud, courage when we are afraid, patience when we are restless, and faith when we are lost. The question is never whether life will teach us. It always will. The question is whether we will let ourselves be students of truth, even when the lesson hurts. Because in the end, reality doesn't come to destroy us. It comes to awaken us, to strip away what is false, to reveal what is real, and to remind us that every challenge we face is an invitation to become something greater than we were before. When we refuse to face reality, we build invisible walls around ourselves, walls made not of stone or steel, but of fear, pride, and denial. We think those walls will protect us from pain, but all they do is keep us isolated. They keep us from the truth, from each other, and from the possibility of healing. Denial feels safe because it allows us to stay in control. It lets us avoid the discomfort of facing what hurts. But in truth, denial doesn't protect us, it imprisons us. It keeps us locked inside a version of life that isn't real, where we mistake avoidance for peace and silence for strength. When we live in denial, conversations become shallow. Relationships lose depth. We start to wear masks that hide our wounds, pretending everything is fine when it's not. And little by little, the distance grows between us and others, and between us and our own hearts. We become strangers to ourselves, disconnected from what truly matters. Yet, the moment we choose acceptance, something remarkable happens. The walls begin to fall. The air feels lighter, and suddenly, the people around us are not so far away anymore. Acceptance is not surrender. It's not saying that what happened was fair or easy. It's simply choosing to see what is instead of clinging to what we wish it were. It's looking at life with clear eyes and saying, this is my truth. It's hard, it's painful, but it's real, and because it's real, I can work with it. Acceptance doesn't weaken us, it strengthens us, because only when we accept can we begin to rebuild. There's a deep kind of power in looking at something broken, a dream, a relationship, a nation, and deciding not to turn away. That's where empathy begins. That's where compassion is born. When we stop denying the pain in ourselves, we begin to understand the pain in others. And that understanding becomes a bridge built from honesty, courage, and shared humanity. In families, denial breeds silence. In communities, it breeds division. In nations, it breeds injustice. But acceptance, the courage to tell the truth, to see clearly, to listen deeply, that's what brings people together. When we acknowledge what's wrong, we create the possibility of making it right. When we admit our mistakes, we invite others to forgive. When we speak our truth, we give others permission to do the same. It's not easy to accept reality when it hurts. It's not easy to look at the cracks in something we love and admit that they're there. But those cracks are where the light gets in. Those cracks are where growth begins. Denial keeps things in darkness. Acceptance lets in the light. And that light, once it enters, transforms everything. It softens hearts that were once hardened. It opens minds that were once closed. It reminds us that no matter how divided we may seem, we are still connected by the same desire to be seen, to be understood, to be whole. Acceptance builds bridges, not only between people, but also within ourselves. It allows us to reconcile the parts of us we've ignored or rejected. It teaches us to hold our flaws and strengths in the same hands, to see our struggles not as shame, but as proof of our humanity. When we stop hiding from the truth, we stop hiding from ourselves. Every bridge begins with a first step, a step toward truth, a step toward one another. And though that step may feel heavy, it carries the weight of healing. Because when we choose acceptance over denial, we don't just connect with others, we rediscover the deeper, unbreakable connection within us, the one that reminds us we were never meant to face this world alone. Courage has always been the invisible thread that weaves through every chapter of human progress. It is what allows individuals and societies to rise from the ashes of their own mistakes, to look directly at what is painful, unjust, or broken, and say, we can do better than this. The courage to accept reality is not glamorous. It does not always come with applause or recognition. Most of the time, it begins quietly, in the heart of a person who refuses to look away from what is true, no matter how much it hurts. When we accept reality, we take ownership of it. And that ownership is the beginning of change. Because we cannot fix what we refuse to see. We cannot heal what we will not touch. We cannot build a better tomorrow while clinging to yesterday's illusions. It takes tremendous courage to face the truth about where we are as individuals, as communities, as nations. It takes courage to admit that the systems we built might be flawed, that the beliefs we've held may be incomplete, that the comfort we enjoy might come at someone else's expense. But that courage, the courage to confront, to question, to accept, is the seed of progress. Throughout history, every step forward has come from those who dared to face an uncomfortable truth, people who looked at injustice and refused to call it fate, people who stood up when silence was safer, people who believed that acknowledging what was wrong was not defeat, but the beginning of redemption. That same courage exists in each of us, the courage to look at our own lives and say, something has to change. Accepting reality doesn't mean losing hope. It means building hope on a solid foundation. Because false hope, built on denial, always collapses. But real hope, the kind that lasts, begins with honesty. When we see the world as it truly is, we begin to imagine what it could be. We stop waiting for miracles and start becoming the miracle ourselves. Courage is not found in avoiding truth, but in embracing it with open eyes and an open heart. It takes courage to admit that we've failed. It takes courage to forgive. It takes courage to see pain and still choose to believe in healing. It takes courage to confront our own limitations and still strive to do better. That courage, more than anything else, shapes our future. A society that hides from its truth becomes stagnant. It repeats its mistakes. It builds walls of pride and fear that separate generations from understanding one another. But a society that faces its truth, that dares to say, this is where we fell short and this is where we must rise, becomes unstoppable, because truth, once accepted, becomes momentum. It ignites action, compassion, and change. There is a particular kind of power in people who have seen the worst of reality and still choose to act with faith and integrity. They are the ones who carry the torch through the darkness. They don't wait for permission to make things right. They don't pretend things are fine when they aren't. They confront reality head on, not with bitterness, but with determination. We need that kind of courage now more than ever. The courage to accept that progress takes work, that healing takes honesty, that unity takes truth. Change doesn't come from those who deny what's wrong. It comes from those who are brave enough to face it and still believe it can be made right. The courage to accept reality is what turns pain into purpose. It's what transforms mistakes into lessons and struggle into strength. It's what allows generations to rise higher than those before them. And though the path of acceptance is never easy, it is the only path that leads forward. When we stop running from the truth and start walking through it with courage, we begin to reshape not just our own future, but the future of everyone who will come after us. Because courage, the quiet, relentless courage to face what is real, is how every great change in history has ever begun. Hope is often misunderstood. Many believe it is a soft word, a fragile thing that lives only in the light, something that exists when everything feels easy and certain. But real hope, the kind that changes lives and shapes destinies, is born not in comfort, but in confrontation. It does not emerge from fantasy,